Hello, in this video I'm going to be talking about the map method built into arrays in ES5 JavaScript and beyond. So I have an example here. I have some arrays with numbers in them. I also have an array of these exam score records here with objects with name and result properties. So the first thing I want to talk about is without using the map function, so before the map function existed, how would we create a new array with values that are double those of set 3? So here's set 3. Basically, I want to create a new array, and every item in that array should be the double of one of these elements. So I created a simple function here called double array. It has a parameter called ARR. Now, a note here, I'm using TypeScript, so you're going to see this type annotation here. Don't worry about it if you're using JavaScript, just disregard this piece right here, and then everything will work fine. So I create a new array, because our goal is to return a new array. So I create a new array that is empty by default. And so we're starting with a blank array and we're building this up from scratch. We're putting what we need in there. So I have a for loop to go through my original array, standard for loop here. And I'm going to basically, for every element in there, I'm going to push a new value onto the result array, and it's going to be the current value, so array at index I, times 2. So for the first one, 12, I'm actually going to push 24 onto the result array, and so on. The for loop is going to continue on until it concludes, and then finally we return the result array at the very end. So how does this look when I call it? I call this this function here, and I pass in whichever array I want to double. So I'm passing in this array here. I could pass in set 4 as well. So that's kind of the theory here, the logic, and you can see the effort you had to put into it, the for loop and creating the empty array and returning it and all of that stuff. So how can we use the built-in map method to accomplish that now? So for that, I'm going to say let doubles equal set3.map, and the map method takes a parameter. This is a callback function. I'm going to be using an Es6 Arrow function as my callback function. So in here, I'm going to take value or val. That's going to be, so the map, this callback function that we're passing in is going to be called or invoked for every element in the original array. So for the first element, it calls this function, and then the second element, and the third element, and so on. The first parameter is going to be the value that is in that position in the original array. So for set 3, the first time this runs, it's going to be 12, and then it's going to be 17, and 22, and so on. All right? And that's the minimum we need for this. If you wanted to, you could also use index. So you could have a second parameter, and that's going to be the position in the array, the original array. So it's going to be 0, 1, 2, and so on. And if you needed it, you could get the third parameter, and that's going to actually be the entire array every single time. So sometimes that might be useful. Maybe you need to know the length of it or something like that. So I'm going to go back to just using the value. And in this callback function, what you do is you return a value, and whatever value you return, that's what gets placed into the blank array that was created. The new array we're creating, that whatever we return here will get placed into the new array at the same index. So the first time this runs, we're looking at index 0 of the original array. Whatever I return from this callback function will be placed in index 0 of the new array. And then it moves on. Whatever I return when we're looking at the index 1 will be placed in index 1 of the new array. And it just keeps going like that. So map is a great opportunity to manipulate or transform existing data in some way without affecting the original data. So given the original data, you can output this transformed data. This data that you have called a function or done something on every single item in that array. So what I want to do is I want to return values that are double of this. So I'm going to return val times 2. Okay, so whatever val is, I'm going to return twice of it. I'm going to return val times 2, and that's going to be put into the doubles array in the same position. So let's see what this looks like. So I'm going to console log the doubles array. Now I'm using TypeScript. I have a custom build process set up, so bear with me here. But this code is the same whether you're using it in the front end or on Node.js, TypeScript, JavaScript. So don't worry too much about what I'm doing up here. So when we run the map function, if you just look at only this piece of code I've selected, then this should be your output. So here is set 3. Double of 12 is 24. The double of 17 is 34. The double of 22 is 44, and so on. So we created a brand new array with these transformed values. So whatever we returned from the callback ended up in the new array. So that's how map works. So let's keep going. Create a new array with values that are 10 greater than those of set 4. So for this one, I'm going to say, let's just say let values equal set4.map. And this time I'm going to show you a shorthand with Es6 Arrow Functions. So first of all, I'm going to type this out and then let me explain it for you. So we're creating a new array with values that are 10 greater than those of set 4. So I'm going to say val plus 10. All right, so this looks a little strange. Looks like a lot of pieces are missing. This is an Es6 arrow function using a couple different shorthands. Number one, to the left of the arrow, if you are only using one parameter in the parameter list, you can drop the parentheses around it. So we no longer need the parentheses like I used up here. To the right of the arrow, if you are returning a value, this is called an implied return shorthand. So if you're returning a value, you can drop the curly braces and drop the word return. You simply put your expression, and it's implied that you mean to return that value. So the map callback here, I'm returning value plus 10. You can't see the word return, but it's happening. So returning value plus 10. So if val were 10, we're going to be returning 20. If it were 25, we're going to be returning 35, and so on. So same logic here. Let's see the result. So I'm going to console log my values. I'm going to run my code again. Okay, so take a look at set 4. Set 4 was 1, 2, 3, 4. And what output in the console? 11, 12, 13, 14. So that's the result of adding 10 to each of those numbers. The final example here, create a new array with just the names of the people who took the exam. So this is another use case for map. Sometimes you have more complicated data and you kind of want to extract only what you need. So make a simpler array of data. So just the names of the people who took the exam. So here's our exam scores here, and right now it's an array of objects, but I want to create an array of strings, just their names. So how might I do that? So one item in the array is an object. I need just the name property. So for this one, I'm going to say let test takers equal exam scores dot map, and this is going to be I'm going to use SR for score record. And what am I going to return? Right, whatever I return here, that's what ends up in the array. Well, I want to return their name because I want their name to end up in the array. So I'm going to return implicitly using the shorthand SR dot name, not result. Result is their score. So let me console log test takers now. Okay, I'm going to run my code again. And this time I have an array of strings down here at the end, John, Josie, and James. So map function, really useful, really great function built into arrays now. So I hope you see how useful it is, and I hope you take advantage of it.